Hello, my name is Brian, and I'm stuck here at home under lockdown like the rest of America. And today I just wanted to share a few ideas that I have about politics. Uh, Now, this is 10 conservative myths about the progressive movement that I want to share with you. Now, first off, I want to come to that. Coming from a place of where uh, I'm a former Trump supporter. I voted for him in 2016. Now, throughout most of my life, I've been not I never really been politically active. Growing up, I was probably considered liberal growing up, but never. I knew what was going on. I knew who was running for president, and my father would talk about politics a lot, but I never go out and vote. I was never much interested when I was younger. Now I'm getting older. So the first time I ever gotten politically active was in 2016. I went to Trump rallies. I was watching Fox News religiously. I was all in on the whole Trump movement. Uh, I watched a lot of right wing online, such things as Louder Crowder, Paul Joseph Watson, Ben Shapiro. And I followed. I believed in all the ideas about socialism and talking about SJWs and all that. But since then, right now, I felt like I've shifted from the right to the left. I have, since Trump has become president, I haven't been very impressed with what he's done. I felt like he's kind of betrayed his supporters. He's pretty much full of hot air, and I just been disappointed with what he was all about, personally. Now, what brought me from the right to the left was not so much Bernie Sanders, which I always liked and agreed with most of his policies. I never hated him or anything. But it was really this election cycle was Tulsi Gabbard. She would go on Fox News many times. She's a war veteran. She talked about ending the wars, free speech. So she had a lot of right-wing appeal. So she was the one who got me interested in progressive policies, because she is, even though she supports, even though she went on Fox News much, she was very much a progressive Democrat like Bernie Sanders. She agreed with universal health care, free college, going green energy, legalizing marijuana, raising the minimum wage. So a lot of these progressive ideas she supported, which got me listening to them. So I started following left-wing news outlets myself, such as Kyle Kalinske, Jimmy Dore Show, even TYT to a certain extent. So it kind of opened my mind and broadened my political spectrum. So now I'm at this point where, being from both sides, like being that I was a pretty hardcore Trump supporter, I'm not coming from a place of total ignorance, or I'm just judging or prejudiced against one side or the other. I've been on both sides. I've been in both camps. So I'm kind of saying this from more of a point of view, not necessarily as good versus evil, or one side's bad, one side's all racist, one side's a bunch of communists. It's not like that. That's what the media wants to portray. They want to divide and conquer. I see it more of just different points of view, different perspectives. In a lot of ways, I think the progressive movement and Trump supporters could actually agree on a lot of things, but sometimes it's just obscured in uh, different cloudy language and different ways of portraying issues. But a lot of times they'll agree, but there's a lot of manipulation in the mass media. You know, they're always fighting for Team Republican or Team Democrat. So right now I would consider myself more of an independent than anything, because I don't really fall in line with Republicans or Democrats. I have criticism of both parties. And when I talk about the progressive movement, I'm talking about people like Bernie Sanders and Tulsi Gabbard, who are an exception from most of the other Democrats. When I talk about the progressive movement or liberalism, I'm not talking about Hillary Clinton or Joe Biden or even Barack Obama. I would consider them neoliberals. They're corporate Democrats. They're the ones that are bought and sold. I'm talking about the grassroots candidates who take no super PAC money, who run on individual donations, such as Bernie and Tulsi did in this cycle. Now, of course, I have my criticism. They're not perfect. Nobody's perfect. No politician, especially. But generally speaking, that's what I'm talking about when I say the progressive movement. Now, some of these, this number one conservative myth that towards the progressive movement or liberalism would be, for me, speaking about immigration. A lot of times, conservatives will say, these progressives are for open borders, total open borders movement. That's not true. Nobody is for complete open borders. Open borders would be no boundaries. It mean that people could just come and go as they want. It mean that there would be no laws, no restrictions, no security, no patrol, no checkpoints along the Mexican border or the Canadian border. And as far as that, there's no borders. You could say that there's no such thing as citizenship. So to say that any candidate is looking for open borders where people just come walking in and out, whether it doesn't matter if you're a terrorist or a drug dealer or sex trafficker, you can just come and go as you want. No checkpoints, no security, no cameras, no laws, no restrictions. That's impossible. No nation does that. Nobody in the Democratic Party or progressive movement is calling for open borders. If that's the case, if you're not going to have any borders between Mexico and Canada, you might as well not even have any state borders or county borders. You have just one big landmass with no lines drawn. That's open borders. No, nobody's calling for open borders. What a progressive movement is for a more humane approach, more practical ways of dealing. Instead of building a wall, we just have stricter border patrol. We have different laws. Instead of criminalizing people coming across, we say we live in a civil court. Instead of throwing them in jail or throwing kids in cages, we deal with them. We also make laws to become a citizen much easier. It's easier to come in illegally than it is to come in legally. That's why they do that. So if you make the path to citizenship a little bit easier, instead of having to wait, several years to become a citizen and having to pay thousands of dollars, get attorneys, and all this, bureaucracy to become a citizen, make it easier. So people that are coming legally, they're getting rewarded, and people that are coming illegally, I'm sorry, but they're going to get deported and coming through the legal process. That's what the progressive movement is mostly all about. Of course, there might be fine details. Some might say we should abolish ICE. Some say we don't. There's different ways of dealing with it. But no progressive is calling for complete open borders. This is a myth. This is an exaggeration by right-wing media. By Fox News, they're going to say anybody that says that any progressive is calling for open borders, and there's none. It's not true. That's an exaggeration. It's hyperbole. It's misrepresentation. It's a scare tactic, fear-mongering. Oh my God, we're going to let anybody come in who's a terrorist. They're going to steal all our jobs. No. Of course they're going to come through a legal process. They're going to have checkpoints. So that's the first point. Number two, second issue, I would say, is gun control. Of course, this is a big thing for conservatives. It's gun control. Oh my God, the progressives, they want to abolish the Second Amendment, take away all our guns. Secondly, it's another myth. It's not true. There's no progressive who wants to abolish the Second Amendment and take away every single citizen's gun. Any hunter, they're not going to take away all their rifles. They're not going to take all your hunting rifles away, okay? Or if you have a pistol for self-defense, self-protection, we're not going to take that away, okay? But what progressives are looking is putting certain restrictions on these high-powered assault rifles, such as these AR-15s, for for practical reasons, because of all these mass shootings. So this would include restricted background control, criminal background checks, psychological evaluations, drug screenings, things like that. I mean, when you go for a job at Walmart, you're going to get a drug screen. You're going to get a criminal background check. Well, the same should be applied for when you're buying a gun. You should be, to close these loopholes where people could get guns, to try to, shut down the black market. Anything to make the people safer, basically. Okay, but it's nothing about. Progressives don't want to abolish the Second Amendment. They don't want to take away your right to bear arms. They just want it to be more regulated, where it's safer. Where they're put into the right hands. They're not going to some psychopath or to some terrorist that getting a hands on a gun. So it's just more practical approach. So this is another exaggeration from the right-wing media that will talk about towards, to slander and fearmonger against progressives. Another issue I would say is with climate change. Now even if you don't believe in climate change, even if you think it's a complete hoax, you would still have many people, even on the right, would still believe that yes, that pollution does occur. You see with the Flint water supply. We talk about how our oceans are filled with plastic bottles. There's fires burning in the Amazon, all in California, which are destroying trees. You have toxic waste. You have all kinds of air pollution and things like that. So, and it seems to be affecting the weather. It seems to be affecting different environments. They say that the glaciers are melting, and that there's more carbon in the air. So all of these things that, scientists say that is a serious issue, that we should be moving towards green energy, that we should be getting off of fossil fuels, burning of oil, fracking, and all these things. We look at the oil spills in the waters that occurred in the Gulf of Mexico a few years that killed off millions of fish and plant life and things like that. So a misconception about the conservatives would be that we can't drive cars anymore. We're gonna ban airplanes and things like that because we want to go green. No, this is another myth blown out of proportion. No, we're not saying people can't drive their cars. We just want to move towards a more a greener economy, move towards solar, wind, and other energy forms, and getting off of fossil fuels into the way of the future. And it's just making a cleaner planet to save animal species and things like that. And who knows, maybe climate change, maybe there could be much disasters. Who knows? I mean, they've been speculating this for years. But nonetheless, we should always be taking care of Mother Earth. I mean, anybody that's a lover of nature should be all in on that. So another myth of conservatives towards progressives would be legalizing marijuana. Conservatives will say, oh, they want to legalize marijuana. What's next? They want to legalize heroin, crack, crystal meth, legalize all drugs, and just have a bunch of junkies in the world. No, this isn't it true. When progressives talk about legalizing, they're talking about just specifically legalizing marijuana, like they already have in many states. They want to legalize all drugs, have a bunch of junkies, people shooting up in the streets, and saying it's all okay, great. No, this is just, we're talking about specifically marijuana. I mean, obviously alcohol and cigarettes are much more deadly and toxic and problematic in our country than marijuana ever has been. I mean, anybody that's smoked a joint before and drank a beer probably knows the difference. Lord knows I know. So, for medical reasons, so that's another thing. So, we're talking about legalizing, we're talking about just specifically marijuana. We're not talking about legalizing all drugs. Now, to decriminalize some of the drug use, and we can look towards more rehabilitation rather than throwing a drug addict into jail and letting them rot there and dealing with all kinds of fines and problems. We could deal more towards rehab and therapy, which seems to work in many other countries. Now, another thing, the fifth thing about conservative myth, I would say, is with criminal justice reform. Saying that we want to, this goes along with legalizing marijuana and decriminalizing drugs, but also, the United States has the highest prison population in the entire world. Okay? We consider ourselves, we're a nation of freedom and we have all these rights, but we have the highest prison population. And many of them, of course, are disproportionately blacks and Latinos. Now, and we've known in criminal justice reform, we're talking about looking at the police force, look at all these different police shootings, police brutality, shooting unarmed men, and so that's a big part of it. Keeping down this, the right wing always talks about the police state and how the police are getting more militarized. So we have to keep a check on that. Be sure that there's not a police state, that the police don't become too powerful, too corrupt, that we have our freedoms, that we're not going to get stop and frisk. People are going to get stopped for just looking suspicious. The surveillance state, we got to stop all of that. That's part of this criminal justice reform that it's about. Now, it doesn't mean that we're going to just let every prisoner out into the streets, willy-nilly. No. But it's just saying having more, just like with immigration, have a more humane approach with dealing with people caught up in legal problems. Myself have had legal problems, and I've dealt with the court system, and sometimes it's horrible. It's dragged out. It goes on for months. You need lawyers. You gotta pay fines. You gotta, and sometimes it could be a real headache. And it's just sad. You see certain people in jail for years, and we've come to find out there's some people that were put on death row, and they find out through DNA evidence that they were innocent. So obviously, our justice system is definitely needs to be reformed in many ways. Number 6, and of course this is the big one for progressives, is universal health care. Now, what do conservatives always say when talking about universal health care? When Bernie says, we're gonna need, Medicare is a right, we should all have free Medicare. They say, oh my God, that's socialism, that's communism. We can't have the big government running our health. There's going to be long wait lines. There's going to be terrible quality, bureaucracy. Okay. First off, we got to look at these other nations. Almost every other developed nation in the world has universal health care. England, France, Germany, Scandinavia, Canada, Australia, Japan. All these countries have universal and have had it for many, sometimes decades. And the people love it. The people love their healthcare system. I personally know people that I've worked with in the military, in other places, different camps, and I've worked with foreigners, people from all over the world, and I probably met at least, over time, over a dozen, maybe 20 different people I've known from these different countries. And in conversation, they would come up and they'd mention about their universal health care. And they all said positive things about it. Every single one of them said something positive about their universal health care and their free college, which I'm going to bring up later. I've even had, coworkers say that they couldn't believe why America hasn't done it yet. And they're almost shocked when they come here. And they come to America to work. They're they just find it very strange that we would have to pay for health insurance and pay a lot of money for our health insurance. So we have to really look at, and of course all these other nations that have universal health care are not communist. England isn't communist, okay? It's a capitalist society, much like our own, but they don't have to pay. They pay in taxes. They pay a small portion of taxes, and they get free health care. No co-pays, free prescription, everything. Now, myself personally, I already have free health care through the VA as a veteran, and it's great. I haven't ever had any problems. If I make an appointment, I go. I mean, it might be a little wait. If I call, I might have to wait a month or so to get an appointment with my doctor, but okay. But if it's serious enough, I could go to the emergency room, and I get free prescriptions. It's great, and that's something I'm going to have for the rest of my life. And I don't have to pay I don't have to pay $100 a month for insurance just for myself. Never mind if you have a family with wife and kids. So that's another thing. Is the conservative myth would be, that this universal health care, it's socialism, and they want to take over your life and big government. So all you have to do is look to other countries and talk to anybody else. It's not communism. It helps lots of people. People that can't afford insurance, it gives them insurance. The cost, it's much more cost effective. You say, how are we going to pay for it? How are we going to pay? Well, they never ask about how we're going to pay for a war in Afghanistan. They never ask about that, or how we're going to bail out different corporations. But with Medicare for All, it's actually much more cost effective to do that if you look into the details. Okay, number seventh myth is free college. Much of the same thing. We already have government-run schooling for K through 12. Well, this is just extending it into college. And maybe maybe you could cover up to a bachelor's degree, or maybe you could have it. In certain schools, you could still have other. You can still have private schools and things like that. But it's just taken away because there's so many people that are burdened with student loan debt, such as myself. I have tens of thousands of dollars in student loan debt that I might not ever be able to pay back. And it just keeps gaining interest, more and more interest. And I had to get deferments, and it's a lot. And it's my credit is shot because of my student loan. Like I said, this is another thing that exists all throughout Europe. Matter of fact, they even get paid to go to school to help pay for their books and for food and living expenses. We want an educated population. That's just to help people out become. So it's not socialism. It exists in other countries just to help people out. So look at the European model, and it seems to work. All the citizens, they love it. Just think about all the money. You have to save up for your children's school, college. Think about how much money, tens of thousands of dollars that are saved, but not just by students now. Okay, they say they get the student loan debt that gets wiped out. Great, that's great for people now. But people of the future, your children and your children's children, they won't have to. We have to save up tens of thousands of dollars to pay for your college. No, the state and the nation will pay for your schooling, just like it does when you graduate high school. Help pay for that. So you don't. That's a big, huge burden off of the middle class of not having to pay for health care and not having to pay for your schooling. I mean, there's nothing evil about that. There's nothing. It's affordable. It's how are they going to pay for it? It's affordable. If we just give trillions of dollars for these bailouts of corporations during this lockdown. We're giving trillions of dollars to help out Boeing and cruise lines. Okay, we could spend a few billion on our nation's education and healthcare. Okay, number 8. We talk about increasing the minimum wage. Bernie Sanders would talk about increasing the minimum wage to $15 an hour. That's another thing that conservatives will make a big deal about. They say, if you raise the minimum wage, then the price of everything will go up. And then there'll be so much job loss. And yada, yada, yada. The thing is, our minimum wage right now is $7.25, which is pathetic. Okay, and it hasn't gone up. Minimum wage hasn't gone up for well over a decade or two. Okay, not mention that just the minimum wage, but wages themselves haven't risen. They've been stagnating for years. You know, I mean, if I'm working in a factory, I'd be making pretty much the same amount of money my father was making 30, 40 years ago. Same wage, maybe a dollar or two more. That's it. I mean, this is ridiculous. We have the price of rent, of food, of everything has gone up, but our wages haven't risen. You raise the minimum wage, that's going to raise the bar for all wages across the board. They're all going to have to compete. Okay, these companies, they're still going to need to hire employees no matter what. Okay, jobs aren't going to boom, vanish, just disappear out of thin air. They're still going to